Well, it is lovely to be back. And I join you in bright and sunny Imola for the Sunday League of Vortex F1 Racing. The races today, 13 of them so far: Pesh, Fade, Onion, Suzuki, Rory, Kong, Zedmar, Eliminator, Who Am I, Forfeit, Daryl, Dan Richards, and Hoki. And as usual, Suzuki out first in the Williams. As we fix any technical difficulties. There we go. So, through the outlap now goes the Williams driver. Soft tyres, of course, for qualifying. And dragging the brake just a little bit to get some temperature in, both to the brakes and to the tyres. Through the final turns now, preparing for the lap, swinging out wide to the left for maximum acceleration across the line now. A little bit of grass through the first turn there. Now turns 2 and 3. Lots of curb, but it's what you need to do. Through Tamburello. As we go past a car on the inside. Through Villeneuve now. Now Tosa. The uphand left-hander. Uphill left-hander that catches everybody out on throttle. It's a purple sector 1. Of course, first to do it. Best of the session. Now Piratella. Down into Aqua Minerale. The sector 1 is beaten. I've been informed that the race is going to have some mixed conditions. It's a purple sector 2, of course, through Variante Alta. Very nice curb line from Suzuki. Again, very much over the curbs in Ravazza. But it's safe and it's a valid lap. And across the line, it's a 114.3. Fade follows very quickly behind to do a 115.1. Onions pleased now through Ravazza himself. The McLaren driver having 2 purple sectors. And across the line is a 14.020, 3/10 faster than second place Suzuki. Who Am I? Just about starts his lap as we follow Rory through Aqua Minerale. Very safe through there. Maybe doing another warm-up lap. I believe that to be the case. Kong now through Vatsa. Very wide on the exit. Somehow gets away with it being valid. As Hoki does a 17.0. Kong 15.2 with that mistake at the end. Now Rory. He's taking it nice and slow. And it's because he's out of fuel. Most likely. Back into the pits he comes. As Eliminator makes his way through Sector 1. Who Am I? Through Aqua Minerale. I hope he's not on a hot lap. Because that car may have just obstructed him a little bit. Well, we'll see. The Red Bull, white and red. Through turn 17. Out wide for another good line for the second part of the corner. Across the line, it is a fast lap. It's second place for Who Am I? 14.349. A few hundredths adrift is Suzuki. Pesh does a 15.4. Dan Richards, 15.196. So Pesh now on an in-lap. Oh, Beast Mode has joined us. Had some technical issues, but is now going for a nice warm-up lap, I believe. That, or he may just be pushing. It's very hard to tell. through Piratella. Pinned on the throttle, might just be a fast lap for him. Now out Criminarelli, out wide to cut back in. A little bit of an early turn in for turn 11. He had 2 goes at the steering. Realizing he could have left it a little bit later. There's some time on the table, and I'm sure he'll be back to take it very wide on the exit of Variante Alta. Just a bit of a shake from the rear as the throttle applied a little bit too quickly. Now for the final 2 corners. Nice and safe for the first lap. The time goes P8 with a 1:16.9. We have Liminator with a 1 minute 29 currently on the board. And his next lap is invalid. Not quite what you want to see, but at least there's multiple chances. Kong having a slide through Ravazza himself, and again in the second half. Very difficult, comes into the pits. So Daryl, the V-Carb. Over the curbs of Variante Alta, just a little bit too harshly. Cut it too much. This lap is invalid. And Rory has gone again. For the first time in a long time, I've seen someone start a lap before Sly Suzuki. Through turn 1, the rear sliding away. The front responsive, but to what point is it too responsive? Now turns 5 and 6 again, having to control the steering. A few tenths slower than Onions, but that's okay for someone who's yet to put a lap down again. As I mentioned, throttle in turn 7, incredibly difficult to apply correctly, and that's exactly what we just saw. And now Piratella. If I didn't know any better, I'd say this car was set up by the previous 4-time world champion himself. Very, very sensitive, it seems. Now Ravazza cutting the inside curb. And another slide on exit. Luckily still a valid lap, but the time may not be what he was hoping for. Puts in P4, however. With a 14.6, there's plenty of room left in that for the Ferrari man. But as always, Sly Suzuki, 2 green sectors from P3. Personal best, not session best. So across the line, it's a 14.171. Second place provisionally. But the man who's currently on provisional pole is also going for another one. Onions with 2 more purple sectors. Flicking the car into Ravazza, trying not to go too wide, but trying not to go too shallow either. And on the exit, it looks beautiful. Across the line, it's a 13.76 for Onions, please. 4 tenths now in front of second. A beautiful qualifying from him so far. Good, consistent laps. Have a look if Zedmar's pushing. He may just be. Fade takes P4 from him though. Halfway through this lap. If that's not motivation, I don't know what is. He's a few seconds adrift. It may just be a chill lap for him. Dan Richards, however, does not look to be going chill whatsoever. The Sauber fully pushing through Piratella. Now up coming a rally very wide on entry, but he's got away with it. A great setup there. It's a personal best sector 2. I'm not surprised with that entry. He set himself up perfectly there. Only a few more seconds in what is usually a very short lap. Didn't quite get the entry to turn 17 that you'd like. Didn't even get any curb on that left-hand side of the car. And over the line, it doesn't quite improve. At least positions-wise. And now on an outlap, it's Kong, who finds himself in the gravel at turn 17. The Alpine, knowing something's not quite right with where his car is. And meanwhile, Who Am I, in P3, does not relent. Going through Tosa now. Take a look at the throttle trace in the telemetry at the bottom. Very smooth. And a great line through Piratella. Clip of the inside curb, but all the way out. Now the entry. Very similar to what we saw from Dan Richards. Very smooth driving from Who Am I here. And it is a personal best and in Sector 1 and a session best in Sector 2. Didn't invalidate in Variante Alta. Very easy to do, as we've seen. And less than a tenth stands between him and Onions Please. And it's all in these final two corners. Wide, but not too wide, should be the slogan for this track. And as close as it is, a 13.846 does not cut pole position. Very, very close. Alas, not today. Or at least, not this time around. Darrell unfortunately invalidates that next lap. Rory pushing as hard as possible. Less than a tenth between his and Onions' Sector 1. Rory looking like a contender here when he can put the lap together. Much smoother on the steering inputs this time around. We saw that 14.69 lap he did before. Wasn't quite as smooth as this now looks. Again, a personal best Sector 2, only just over a tenth. And great rotation through Variante Alta. The car now obeying much less instability. This looks like a completely different car. And a completely different driver to go in it too, across the line. What time can he manage? It's a 14.0. So still a few tenths off. Sector 3 needs a little bit of work for the Ferrari. But there's one more go. And P3 is a whole lot better than P6. Suzuki, speaking of the final go, has already gone for it. Two set personal best sector in 1 and 2. A little bit of struggling through the second half of Ravazza. Across the line, 14.035 to knock Rory from his third provisional spot. Kong taking it as a warm-up lap. Eliminator on the way into the pits. Hoki also having a nice chill time around the circuit. Zedmar and Fade on outlaps, as is Onions. And Onions looks to be the first one of the final go around who'll start his lap. He's got a nice bunch of clean air ahead of him, so we'll keep an eye. In fact, we'll follow him through. You have to make sure not to invalidate your lap before it even starts at the final turn. Holding to the right side to reduce track length. Taking the left side curb, it actually lifts the front wing off the floor a little bit. You get a little bit of top speed. Now through turns 2 and 3. Tamburello. It's very technical. If you can push it with confidence, as in Villeneuve. Looks like it's still valid. It is indeed, and it's a session best first sector by 2 thousandths of a second. 2 milliseconds. That's the difference we're talking about now. The car obeying perfectly through Piratella. Turning just the right amount. and half a tenth faster through Sector 2. A slide in Variante Alta though. That's not what you want to see. And it may just ruin the prospects of improvement. We'll have to see. Through the final turns. A flick into Rivazza. And again for the second half. And the run up to the line. You can't stop staring at the stopwatch. And indeed it is an improvement, only if just by a little bit. Still a 13.7, which does give some chance to Who Am I? Zedmar chilling once again. Double warm-ups laps seem to be the idea here, given these short lap times. Trying to wear some fuel down by doing 2 out laps is a known strategy. As Pesh retires from the session. And forfeit. Currently on a 15.2, goes through turns 2 and 3 now Tamburello. Very smooth driving so far. It's a valid lap. Half a second adrift in the first sector. But it's about improvement. It's not about comparison. It's about improvement. Especially in qualifying. A great entry to Acqua Minerale. And a personal best in Sector 2 for forfeit. The first half of the curb in Variante Alta, very scary. So he decides to avoid it. For the sake of making sure this lap is consistent. A little bit of a lock-up on the inside tyre into Rivazza, and that's invalid. Too wide. The braking too harsh. You can see on the telemetry, he had the throttle on during the braking zone. It just didn't quite help with that front left as it locked up. Didn't know where to go. As the people take the checkered flag now. Onion's still in the lead, but Who Am I? Has one shot. It was a personal best Sector 1, a yellow Sector 2, and there's been a mistake. And unfortunately, the stopwatch says that's it for Who Am I? He comes into the pits. The only driver not to finish is Darrell. Who, after recovering this invalid lap, will be done. So, the nature of this track, as we've seen, very technical, and that's led to the 2-second gap between the times in the field from 1st to 14th. And in the race, well, it's quite common to see penalties around here for the track limits violations. Pushing the curbs for lap time can often come at the cost of consistency. And the consistency is what we'll be looking for in the race. As Darrell walks in pace over the start finish straight. There we go. It didn't quite feel like showing me the starting positions, so we'll go through them when we get into the race. Okay, as we line up along the paddock, it's Onions taking our pole position. We'll go through the starting order when it's available. EA just didn't quite feel like showing us. So, I've been told that there's planning to be rain in the last few laps. Which will indeed, in the last few minutes at least, which would indeed shake up the strategy at the very end. So what looks like clear skies now may not stay clear skies for the next 32 laps. We'll be readying up any minute now. And here we go. The red light's ready. It's McLaren up front. As away we go for the Imola Grand Prix. It's Onions leading us away. Bit of wheel spin on the medium tyres. Who am I? Immediately takes the lead off the start. The drag race. Too much for the McLaren to handle. Still side by side though down the inside. Onions goes under braking. A little bit of wheel banging. The Red Bull comes out on top. Suzuki in third. Rory fourth. Zedmar fifth. Fade started fifth down to sixth. But at least is on track. Which is not what we can say. For Pesh and... it seems Kong, who've had a little bit of an incident there. Pesh goes off. And Dan Richards down to P9. The scrapping is inevitable in turn 1 Imola. And that's exactly what we got. Who am I? An Onions now. Onions not quite happy with having given up that front spot. While we're doing this, we'll take a look at these tyre choices. Everyone on the mediums except for Pesh. So we'll keep an eye on that one. As Zedmar and Fade go side by side, Fade dives down the inside of Rivazza and gets that position. P5 now again. Who am I sets the fastest lap from the front. And Onions. No DRS active yet, but still closing in on the straights. It looks like he may have some lower wings. The aerodynamics more optimized for top speed than anything else. Who am I? Charging the battery. You can see the flashing on the car. As Daryl and Zedmar go side by side. Zedmar down the inside into turn 7. Little bit of wheel banging going on as the Alpine gets into the wall. It's Kong who finds himself off the track after turn 7. Now, I'd hate to say it, but I feel like that was more game physics than anything else. As Who Am I and Onion still glued together. Imola, as the track is very centered around that main straight, the DRS zone, where a move is to be made. All that Who Am I has to do is make sure it's not too many people flying past him. Suzuki watches on as DRS is active for the first time in the race. Onion swoops past down the straight. Suzuki gains significantly. As Who Am I goes wide in Tamburello. Finds himself down in P3 now. Rory on the outside. Tried to navigate round, didn't quite find it. So Suzuki, now P2, Who Am I? Who was in first down the main straight down to third. That is what you have to avoid. This DRS can be very punishing. Suzuki now has to not lose sight of Onions, else everybody behind will also lose reach. The fight for first depends on this fight not going above 1 second in delta. Dan Richards with the first 3-second penalty. We talked about it beforehand. This is what we're seeing. Nearly 9/10 between Suzuki and Onions. DRS is active for the McLaren. But down the main straight, Onions is still saving the battery. Nothing much left in it for him. As Who Am I locks up a little bit into turn 2. Struggling quite a bit with that corner now. And Rory on the outside again. Squeezed. Resorts to the grass. As Rory gets a 3-second penalty as well from P4. Not much battery left in it for anybody at this point. As Onions and Suzuki close in. Suzuki up to 4/10. Adrift with Onions. But struggles just a little bit through turn 12. 13 now goes down to 6/10. As the 4-man DRS train up front continues. Hoki gets the next 3-second penalty. And Fade finds himself leading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other cars. 6 other cars, in fact, through his DRS train. So as Onions tries to escape down the straight, Suzuki 9.3 behind. Will still have that rear wing open. No big moves to be made for now. What about Fade? Daryl behind him with the DRS doesn't see anything. Dan Richards follows very closely behind Zedmar. Pesh behind him. Eliminator behind him. And Kong behind him. Sauber on Aston. Dan Richards looked to the inside of turn 5. Didn't see any purchase there. What about turn 7? No. Stays single file. But a spin on the entry. Braking so difficult when it turns to the left hand in the braking zone. As we saw Hoki have a little slide there. Dan Richards down to P11 now. No longer following the Aston Martin. Giving a little bit of breathing room, but not too much. The front of the pack, staying relatively within reach of each other. Suzuki 9.6 so close. 7.5 now. And with all the battery he has saved, it is still not enough. Because Onions has more. And he's recharging already down the straight, aware of where he can and can't recharge. Just to keep Suzuki at bay. Kong and Eliminator through turn 1. Kong resorts to the gravel. And gets overtaken by Dan Richards. A beautiful late move for him, taking advantage of the slow Alpine. A little bit of sliding from the tyres in turn 5 and 6. That won't help their durability. It's Eliminator. A little bit of a slow exit from Tosa. Through Piratella. Dan Richards is absolutely hunting. Gets a 5th warning. One more and that's 6 seconds for him. Onions doing everything he can to stay alive down these straights. 8 tenths, 7 tenths. In his mirrors, he knows what he's seeing. It's a Williams getting ever so close. Every time the DRS rolls around, Dan Richards and Eliminator swap around under DRS. Dan Richards trying to get back to where he was before. Darrell drawing close to fade. The 2 V-carbs remain relatively passive. How long that stays for is anyone's guess. Piratella sets up Aqua Minerale. And into turn 11, a much better entry for Darrell. Still 2 tenths. As the front of the pack makes their way down to Rivazza, it's Fade and Darrell that are the closest of anyone on the field. Down the DRS straight now. Does Fade have what it takes to defend? 40% battery. Is it enough? There's nothing left in the tank for Darrell. The rear wings open, the top speed. It's the best it's going to get. Tried to fake the inside, but no. As much as this rear wing looks like it's going up that V-carb's bumper, he didn't quite get the run. And Fade is safe for now. But it's now the drivers start driving in their mirrors. He pulls to the inside to defend turn 7. The inside line doesn't quite carry as much speed though. And Darrell had a better run but loses control of it there. The pair so close together. And with no battery left in it for Darrell, can he make the move this time around? Battery very similar for the both of them actually now. And both peel into the pits. Darrell fakes in, comes back out. Does not stay. So Darrell will stay on the track. As Fade becomes the first man of the grid to come in for new tyres, and it's hard for him. So currently, only Pesh and Fade are the ones on the hard tyres. Kong gets a 3-second. I don't think it's his first. Pokey hits the grass on the way into turn 7, and that spins. No chance of a run there. But the front remains relatively as is. down the DRS straight. Again, the gap just a little bit too wide to send a dive. Round the outside goes Zedmar into turn 1. Big slide across the gravel he goes into turn 3. And Daryl takes advantage of that one, says thank you very much. Pesh now hunting through on Zedmar. The mistake very costly. A difficult one for Daryl there. You can see the run isn't quite the same. Like battery, very similar. Suzuki's Delta this time around looks a lot better. Onions with a little bit of a slide through Rivatsa. 8/10. Is that close enough? Is that striking distance? Well, Fade has gotten past her beast mode. I believe there was a mistake made there. 8/10 evidently is not striking distance. And Rory becomes the second driver to come into the pits. That's hard tyres for the Ferrari. Pesh around Daryl with the help of that drag reduction. It's all about carrying speed while not killing the tyres. We're on lap 11 of 32 already. We're seeing some tyre degradation come into effect. Eliminator and Hoki, of course, have now pitted themselves. Now 9/10 down this straight. This is going to be concerning. But I believe that was the DRS detection point, which means we've just about got another DRS this time around. Six tenths into turn 2 once again. But Dan Richards in the meanwhile gives Obese Mode a little bit of a tap. Takes it though. Curious driving from him there. Finding out with his nose rather than his eyes. But probably because there's more going on behind him. Kong, Eliminator, and Obese Mode comes into the pits now for brand new tyres, most likely, as Dan Richards has to contend with Kong, who flies past into turn 2. And Eliminator goes for a switchback through turn 4 with alternate lines. Doesn't quite get the run. Goes wide in turn 5, breaks too much. As a result, they'll try and counteract it for turn 6. Now it's just a few tenths adrift. The hard tyres, difficult to warm up indeed. But once they're there, they'll last a lifetime. Eliminator there, another corner cutting warning. He's on 3 seconds, one more warning will make it 6. As Dan Richards gets 6 seconds worth of penalties. The Sauber cutting Variante Alta just a little bit too closely. And while Zedmar comes into the pits, coming out, I believe, in 13th, maybe 12th. 12th indeed. At the front, it's all about who's going to drop first. Who hasn't looked after their tyres well enough to do a one-stop strategy. Because from this point onwards, 19 laps would take you there. And if you've managed 13 on the mediums, I reckon you can manage 19 on the hards. They stay out, except for Who Am I? P3, not enough for him. He goes for the undercut. Either that, or he hasn't quite managed to keep these tyres in check. We'll see which one it is when we see if this works for him. Darrell does follow him through. The V-carb following the Red Bull, and then forfeit from P7. Gives it up to go on to a set of the hards himself. Eliminator stays out, having started on the hards, actually been on the hards for 4 laps already. Some who pitted much earlier than others. Obese Mode gets a 3-second penalty. And now Suzuki is firmly out of reach of Onions for P1. 1.7 seconds is the difference now. We're seeing out of control is the Williams. Is there a puncture on that thing? Have the tyres been taken too long? They just look very, very marbled from this point. You can see the texture on the tyres as they spin, and yes, Onions into the pit, as does Suzuki. But it's now 2.5 seconds, the gap between them. And the person to look out for is Who Am I? Because it's him that pitted early from that top 3 train, trying to come out more further up. And out of the pits come Onions and Suzuki, and Who Am I comes out ahead. The undercut served him well, but he's still looking after these hard tyres, nurturing them, aware they've got 17 more laps to go. Eliminator with 3 seconds. And a yellow flag as Kong finds himself off in turn 4 as he watches Darrell and Zedmar go side by side into turn 5. Round the outside goes the V-carb. Well done by Darrell and Zedmar. Ultimately left behind by the medium runner. So the top 3 train has turned into the 4, 5, 6 train. It's still net lead, of course, but it's now Who Am I up at the top of it, with Onions following him, Suzuki following him. Fade gets a penalty of his own. Of course, penalties galore around Imola. Now, if I was Fade, I'm looking in those mirrors and I'm seeing a Red Bull, a McLaren and a Williams, none of which I quite want to be on the bad side of. And there we go, he pulls to the inside, conscious of what's about to happen. Through goes Who Am I with the DRS. And now here's the problem for Onions. If he gets stuck behind this V-carb for too long, then he is in trouble. However, that may not be an issue. Never mind, it remains an issue through turns 5 and 6. It looked like he had a run. What about the inside of turn 7? Fade defends the inside of turn 7. Onions goes a little bit deep. There's some wheel banging going on. And on the exit, it's Onions. Does the overtake cleanly and stays within DRS. But Suzuki may have had an incident or something. 3 seconds behind now. Didn't quite notice it. But the Williams driver has fallen behind. Which means for now, this is a 2-horse race. As Who Am I and Onions charge back through the field, brand new tyres, and hoping most likely to go to the end. Into turn 1. Who Am I? Defends well. Of course, the 1 lap tyre differential will make an impact later on, as the hard tyres start to crumble. But 3/10 is surely a scary gap if you're the Red Bull here. Speaking of scary gaps, Darrell on Eliminator into turn 8. Piratella makes it easy for the V-Carb. There he goes. Zedmar now taking advantage into Variante Alta. Can take the turn like normal because Eliminator is not in the way. Who Am I and Pesh swap around. Onions following him through with DRS, but this time Onions is going for it. Out of the pits, he came out P2, but around he goes down the main straight. There's nothing Who Am I can do. The undercut he worked so hard for. Sees him following the very McLaren he was stuck behind. Turn 12, Who Am I gets his first corner cutting warning in 18 laps. Out of Variante Alta, the delta has increased just a little bit, 6.5 tenths between the two. Is there room for Who Am I to take this back? Onions has done a much better job of battery saving. There's far more in the tank for him as Onions takes fastest lap. And with DRS, the Red Bull doesn't quite have the pace for that. Suzuki round the outside of Fade into turn 2. Gives him the space. Fade gets a corner cutting warning. Stays behind though. And Dan Richards behind Darrell blocks up into turn 2. Very deep. Loses almost half a second, nearly a second altogether to Darrell as a result. Zedmar and Dan Richards now. The Aston going hunting for some used medium tyre runners. There's only one of those. And he's driving right ahead of him. A compromised exit into turn 12. Not as wide on the entry. He's doing well staying behind though. And biding his time for when the rear wing can open. Bit of an understeer from Dan Richards into turn 17. The Sauber seeming reluctant to rotate. But this is his moment. Zedmar with battery, with DRS. If there's any time you're going to make a move, it's here around this track, and around the outside he goes. Into turn 2. They're still side by side. The Sauber gets the inside room. And it's well defended. Dan Richards stays ahead, but pulls to the side. Gives away the position. Maybe he doesn't think it was quite fair. That's up to him. But either way, great sportsmanship from him. Respectful racing. It's on Who Am I now? Kong with a 3-second. Far from the first. And you can see at this point, Who Am I? Saving battery. Using the DRS simply to stay within a few tenths. And go for it all next lap. I saw a little bit of a twitch from the front of that McLaren. Onions finding it difficult to make it through Tamburello stably. Dan Richards and Zedmar once again. He was overtaken last time around, but this time, into turn 5, the Saubers side by side. And beautifully done is Dan Richards. He gave that position away just last lap, only to take it back. Earn it back, in fact. As Who Am I did just slightly drop above a second on the Delta for a second. At the burn, out of Variante Alta, does he have DRS? He does indeed. So he's safe for now, but so does Onions Please. And the question is, oh, never mind, he does not. He's within 1 second. Not quite. With that rear wing open though. Being stuck behind traffic is an absolute nightmare for him, because that's not how you'll get the car behind. The dirty air can very much impact the lap times. As Dan Richards comes into the pit, so Zedmar ultimately takes that position from him again. No progress made into Variante Alta, just very close between the McLaren and the Ferrari, but you'll also notice there's only 5 tenths between Who Am I and Onions. This has given him a slight advantage. DRS active for both drivers now. It should be an easy one for Onions. Side by side into turn 2, and McLaren's given it. Now it's up to Who Am I to navigate past this traffic in a way that doesn't impede him. Because every second Onions has clean air is a second you don't want to be out of his DRS range. Who Am I still stuck behind Rory? Rory gets a penalty, making it 3 seconds for him. And Who Am I will have a job and a half getting past that Ferrari because he has a DRS of his own. And in fact, he's not quite giving up on it. His tyres may be 4 laps older, but that hasn't been stopping him trying to catch up. Who Am I stays unable to quite find a way through. 3/10. And notice Rory now out of DRS of Onions, which means even if Who Am I overtakes, there's work to do. Onions is getting away with it now, because Who Am I is struggling too hard with the traffic. And as I was told before the race, there was some rain projected. If you look up at the sky, and look up at the weather forecast in the top, you'll notice we're moving to overcast. There's light rain coming soon. It'll all depend on whether or not it comes just after the race ends or before. Because Rory now, no DRS, makes it very easy for Who Am I to pass. But now 1.2 seconds is that delta. And at this stage, with 12 laps of age on those tyres, pushing doesn't quite seem like a possibility. He has, however, just managed to get through. And he's taking some time out of it. The delta, that is, but not everything. It goes down to 1.2. And as you see, no DRS for the Red Bull. DRS for Rory, though. As the grid very spread out, just because of the technical nature of this circuit. It is not an easy one. The weather seems to be behaving for now, as overcast remains the forecast. If rain comes, it doesn't look like it'll be worth switching to intermediate tyres, more so just dealing with it on the slicks. And speaking of sliding, Rory through Ravazza struggles so much and has DRS, but doesn't quite have any sort of range now. Gives us a chance to look at how useful the DRS is around here. 1.1 seconds to 0.7 seconds. So 1.2 seconds now, the lead squarely in Onions' hands. Light rain now in 10 minutes. And now, essentially, if you're close to someone, imagine it's time trial. Get some faster laps in and try just about catch them. Just like Forfeit's trying on Dan Richards, though of course, Dan Richards' 8-lap newer tyres, many having gone for the 2-stop, but you can see towards the front is everyone who's gone for the 1-stop. And while correlation does not equal causation, I think it's quite safe to say, as Eliminator flies past Forfeit into turn 2, I think it's quite safe to say at this point that the 1-stop has reigned supreme. Those at the front took medium tyres for so long. Through Piratella, Dan Richards and Eliminator. Eliminator happy to sit behind for now, but most likely not for long. Zebmar now making his way through, 17 laps old on the tyres, through on Fade into Rivazza. The newer tyres, definitely an advantage at this point, but is it enough of an advantage to make up for doing the 2-stop? Most likely not. Now the rain has started. We have 1 lap to go, and I can see it. So, we're on slick tyres, but in the rain. Because at this point, as we're on the final lap now, Onions taking us through. But of course, there's not even time to pit. You just have to get on. That's exactly what they're doing. Any mistake at this stage, however, can be absolutely fatal for your race. However, Fade has gone to intermediates. Very conscious of the dangers of driving on a wet track with dry tyres. But the gaps remain relatively similar at this stage. across the line for the finish, it's Onions. Of course, he led the race dominantly, and that's how he finished. Onions, you can see a flashing fuel light at this point. Very well timed. It's Who Am I? Second, Suzuki third, Rory fourth, Zedmar fifth, Daryl sixth, Peshin seventh, Forfeit eighth, Dan Richards ninth, and Liminator took our final points position. Very steady race towards the end, but a very chaotic one in the first half. So, there's our McLaren on the top spot. And Pesh took fastest lap, driver of the day, most overtakes and cleanest driver. The only thing he didn't get from the game was race winner. And that we'll have to save for next time. So, finishing order as follows. Thank you very much for joining us in Imola, and we'll see you next time around. Thank you very much.